My Lord and my God, I firmly believe that you are here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with profound reverence. I ask your pardon for my sins and the grace to make this time of prayer fruitful. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. Jesus, today we celebrate the feast of two of your 12 apostles, Saint Simon and Saint Jude. And in the Gospel of the Mass today, we observe you, Jesus, going up to the mountain to pray, and you spent all night in prayer to God. And the next day, you called all of the disciples to yourself, and from them you chose 12. And in the Gospel of today's Mass, those 12 are named. Simon, whom Jesus named Peter, and his brother Andrew. James, John, Philip, Bartholomew, Matthew, Thomas, James, the son of Alphaeus, Simon, who was called a Zealot, and Judas, the son of James, and Judas Iscariot, who became a traitor. Jesus, you prayed all night. You pulled an all-nighter. And I don't know about you all, but most of us, I think, won't pull an all-nighter unless there's a really good reason for it. At least that should certainly be the case. And it's prudent not to do it very often because not getting any sleep will make it more difficult to work the next day, more difficult to pray. It usually makes us more irritable, harder to deal with. But in this case, Jesus, we see that you had a very good reason for pulling an all-nighter. You were praying for those 12, most likely. We don't know what he prayed about, but that was probably it. Praying for them, conversing with God the Father about them, about their vocation, the special vocation to be apostles. And St. Simon and St. Jude, we don't know too much about them. St. Jude, we're not sure if the apostle St. Jude is the same as the author of the epistle, one of the books of the New Testament. Some authors say yes, others say no. St. Simon, he's referred to as a zealot. Now the zealots, many of them, if not all of them, were fervent Jewish nationalists and were known to resort to violence to carry out their cause. And we don't know what Simon did before being called by Christ, but what we do know is that he said yes. He said yes. And his zeal, right, his enthusiasm, his passion, would no longer be for Jewish nationalism, but rather for Christ, for the salvation of souls. So Jesus, when you come from your all-nighter, you invite the apostles to enter into your life, to live with you in a special way, to follow you, and to learn how to be servants of others, to learn how to be missionaries, right? On a mission, literally, to save souls. And Jesus, you pass on your zeal for souls to them. Zeal is a great energy or enthusiasm in pursuit of a cause or objective. Jesus, we see that you really want us to be saved, really badly. You want us to approach you, to be your friend, to come to you for forgiveness, to spend time with you, to carry the yoke that you ask us to carry. Once I was teaching a class to 4th through 6th grade girls, and we were in a chapel. and I was explaining the chapel to them. We were observing how that particular chapel was designed, that all of the pews were facing towards one direction, towards the altar and towards the tabernacle behind the altar. Now, I didn't give that away right away. We were observing where everyone was looking, where the lights were shining. And I asked them, where are the lights shining right now? And one girl raised her hand and said, the lights are shining most strongly on that silver box. And she was absolutely right. She didn't know that that box was called the tabernacle. But it's true that the tabernacle is a type of box, a very beautiful and nice box, usually made out of precious metals. And in that box, we hold Jesus Christ, the Eucharist, body, blood, soul, and divinity. And so she said, everything is pointing in the direction of the box. and she was right. And then I explained the tabernacle, and I said, who's inside? And another raised her hand and said, Jesus. Jesus is inside. Jesus, you are inside the box, waiting for me, waiting for each one of us. You are there, passionate, right, about us, zealous for us, with a zeal to be with us. We see your zeal on the cross. Jesus, in this time of prayer today, we ask you to help us have a zeal for souls, to also have a zeal like yours, that we want souls to be saved. We want souls to find you. We want souls to experience the joy of receiving communion and going to the sacrament of confession and having a relationship with your mother the way we do. All of that, all of the most beautiful treasures of our faith, we want others to experience because it's real. Jesus, give me that zeal, please. Because sometimes I can be indifferent with regards to the salvation of others or their happiness. One spiritual writer writes, Jesus relies on us to bring the joy of our Lord, the joy of the gospel, the strength of God to very many people. Jesus, you rely on me, each one of us listening to this podcast, to the entire church. You count on us. You rely on us to bring the strength of God, the joy of Jesus, your joy, Lord, to bring it to many people. St. Josemaria Escrivá would say that many of our personal problems disappear when we stop focusing on ourselves and instead focus on others. Now, he didn't mean we shouldn't take care of ourselves. No, he would emphasize that it's important to rest and to eat right, so that we can be good instruments in our Lord's hands. We can take care of our bodies in order to be able to serve others as well as possible. But he's referring to mostly what's going on in our own head, because we can create or exacerbate many of our own personal problems because we're thinking about them all the time. We're thinking about how we are a victim or how people treat us, and the more I think about it, the bigger it's going to be, and the worse it's going to be in my own head, and the more I'm going to suffer. But if I start focusing less on my personal problems and more on the problems of others, on how to help them, on how to give them that joy and that strength of God, many of our problems are just going to disappear, or they're going to be less important in our own head. We'll have that right order. So, Jesus, we ask you to help us have that zeal, that care also for others. Once when I was a teacher, I took some high school students to a nursing home to visit some of the residents there. And we would ask to visit those who typically did not receive any visitors. And once, after having visited several elderly at this nursing home, I went with the high school students to get ice cream and to share our impressions about that afternoon. And one young man said that he felt happy, really happy after spending time with these people. And it was because he hadn't been thinking about himself, because he'd been thinking about the others, because he was able to put a smile on an older lady's face and to cheer her up for a little bit. And he wasn't worried about himself. He was worried about someone else. And he experienced that joy, that happiness. So Jesus, just like you sent the apostles on a mission to bring souls to you, you also send us. And you send us to bring that strength, that love, that joy that is yours, to bring that to others. And so increase our zeal. May we really want that for others. May we really want their peace. May we really want their salvation. I thank you, my God, for the good resolutions, affections, and inspirations that you've communicated to me in this meditation. I ask your help to put them into effect. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.